Hello, everyone. What's going on? That's right. This is the March 19th, 2023 edition of the Boxing Source Radio Show. That's right. I'm here in the building, James Bell, and we are going to be, breaking down the big fight card coming up in Las Vegas on Saturday. That's right. Saturday. We're going to, get into the big fight for the WBC interim super middleweight championship. David Benavidez, Caleb Plant. We got, that is a huge event. And, we also, have a good number of fights there that is going to be part of the undercard that we're going to be breaking down as well here in this particular podcast. And if there is a time here on the live podcast, we will be also talking about some other stories within the boxing world that came down this week. But we thank everyone that will be listening in here live and also on demand. That will be through iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever you use to listen to your podcast. The Boxing Source podcast is available on those audio platforms too. If you're able to take the time to listen to it on demand, we thank you for your support. But we want to get into, like I said, this big bout here. David Benavidez, Caleb Plant, WBC interim super middleweight championship fight, MGM Grand in Las Vegas, March 25th. You have, of course, Benavidez there, two-time world champion at super middleweight, in there with a record of 26-0 with 23 of those wins by way of knockout. And then you have Caleb Plant, former IBF super middleweight champion, with a record of 22 wins and 1 loss with 13 wins by way of knockout. And this thing here, we got this, what they say is a tail of the tape, right? You got David Benavidez coming in there at 6'2" with a 74.5-inch reach. And you have Caleb Plant coming in there at 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. This is something where you have, of course, two of these guys are, without question, among the top in the super middleweight division. Some may say that David Benavidez is ranked number 2, just right under the undisputed super middleweight champion, Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan. That's right. I said the whole government name. All right. And, Caleb Plant is, as many may say, might be right under David Benavidez. Of course, you have, super middleweights like David Morrell. You also have a newcomer to the super middleweight division, Demetrius Andrade, that's also in the mix at super middleweight. But, these two fighters here are former world champions, and so they're pretty much like they're at the top of the super middleweight division. And this fight here is two guys, not just, I would say, in the top 5, but in the top 3 in the super middleweight division. With both of these guys, you have a lot of things to look forward to. David Benavidez is one of the more exciting fighters there in the super middleweight division. Like I said, undefeated, never really lost his belt in the ring. Majority of his fights, have ended by stoppage or knockout. His last bout came in on May 21st of last year against David Lemieux, where he was able to stop David Lemieux in 3 rounds. It wasn't even much of a fight at all. You know what I mean? And then for Caleb Plant was part of the fight card in Brooklyn last October, where he was able to stop Anthony Durrell with a, pretty much a knockout of the year candidate there. And, I was there in attendance at the Barclays Center live for that. And, was able to see that live. And, a lot of people were, in shock to see Caleb Plant be able to, finish Durrell like that, and so that kind of like built things up for this particular fight to take place. To know that there had been a couple of conversations going on, from the previous year and see what or if this fight could, pretty much take place. But like Caleb Plant was saying leading into this particular bout, we said that he took the fight with Anthony Durrell with that, I guess the end game being that if he wins that fight against Anthony Durrell, then he gets to fight David Benavidez, and this is not only kind of WBC interim title fight. It's like a final eliminator in there for the WBC belt. So there is a lot on the line in this particular bout. I'd say that this is the first high stakes bout, so to speak, on one side there for David Benavidez. He's, like I said, he's had a number of fights there, where he was able to win the super middleweight belt or the super middleweight title, WBC title against Ronald Gavriel back in 2017. And then had another rematch there where he was able to win by unanimous decision in the rematch. But he hadn't really had, I guess, a high profile fight of sorts up to this point. Of course, everyone knows that Caleb Plant, they're the IBF champion, defeated Jose Escalagui for the IBF championship and was able to defend it for a few times there before going up against Canelo Alvarez in 2021, where he lost by stoppage in the 11th round. But he feels like that was a moment there where he felt like he did very well up to that point where the stoppage happened. But he says that he's coming in this fight very confident, calm, chilling out, cool ahead of this fight against David Benavidez, and that he is very confident that who he has there in his camp, with his father and of course with Stephen Breadman Edwards, that he is ready to go for this fight, and that that the bright lights and that type of atmosphere is something that he's not really going to think about when he goes in there against David Benavidez. Now, on the flip side with David Benavidez, like I said, undefeated, two-time WBC super middleweight champion. This, like I said, this is first bout here where he's headlining, and it's at a place like MGM Grand, one of the most storied venues there for the sport of boxing. Now, Benavidez has fought in Las Vegas before. He's fought, over in the Staples Center, at one point too, but nothing to the level of headlining a pay-per-view bout. This is his first pay-per-view headline event. So you got something in this particular instance where he's going to, have, everybody pretty much watching him, not just there in the MGM Grand Garden Arena, but also on Showtime pay-per-view. So, I mean, I'm kind of like thinking about it like, hey, you got to really, see if you're going to be able to, erase all of, what's going on around you and be able to focus there on Caleb Plant in order to get this win, because, with this win, it means, things could really blow up there for David Benavidez. Now, some people feel like he could be the next, pay-per-view attraction there. Of course, from their Mexican heritage, he has the now people are calling him the Mexican Monster. Of course, the El Bandera Roja nickname kind of stuck with him for a good while over the course of his professional career. But now, people are calling him the Mexican Monster. And if he's able to score a big win here over Caleb Plant, and I know that, he, along with his trainer there, his father, Jose Benavidez Sr., feels like they're going in there for the knockout. That if he's able to make this statement of getting a knockout victory there over Caleb Plant, I mean, that's going to really, send a message there in the super middleweight division, that he's basically here to stay at super middleweight. I know that a number of people feel like he's a big guy, young there at around 26 years old. That he could still do some things in the super middleweight division before moving up to 175. But we feel like there's still some business to attend to at 168. Not just here with Caleb Plant, but going from what Jose Benavidez Sr. said earlier, well, it was like a couple of days ago or so, when he was on with the Rise podcast. Shout out to the Rise podcast there with Senior and Coach Squeeze. Jose Benavidez Sr. said that, with this fight, we got David Benavidez. If he's able to get the win in this fight, that, there's more fights to be done there at super middleweight. Now, Jose Benavidez, did mention David Morrell, who has the WBA regular title there at super middleweight. He also mentioned Demetrius Andrade, that's also at super middleweight, campaigning at super middleweight, there. So I mean, you got all this stuff going down. Shout out to those joining in here live. You got one big supporter here, and we support the channel on YouTube, and that's L-Dub Boxing. Boog Williams there, L-Dub Boxing in the building, and what's going on with you. And of course, great supporter of the Boxing Source here, Juice is here live. So salute to you there. Yeah, like I said, big fight this weekend. Like I said, I mean, you got a number of those contenders there at the super middleweight division that, not only is there like campaigning to be among the top there at super middleweight, but you got this fight here that could really like define or shape what else could happen there at super middleweight. Now, I did say Jose Benavidez Sr., was on the Rise podcast on YouTube, pretty much like a day ago. And, he talked about, how important this fight is here for David Benavidez and how focused that he's been in camp leading into this particular fight, and that he says that, they really don't like each other. This is really like one of those grudge matches. And this is, pretty much been one of the most anticipated fights in the super middleweight division in the past few years. I mean, a number of people or fight fans have said, like, this is one fight that we will want to see at super middleweight. When you talk about fights or big fights that could be made within the divisions, then you got, of course, over the past few years, a lot of the boxing fans wanted to see, Joshua versus Wilder, Spence versus Crawford, among others. But this one here is among those that could be, as far as like what fight fans are looking forward to. This one here is it. Real shout out live here on the chat with L-Dub Boxing. He did talk about or mention that you do have another fight at the super middleweight division coming up this week here real quick, and that is in Billy versus Gongora. Carlos Gongora was an IBO super middleweight champion, former IBO super middleweight champ. That particular fight comes on Thursday, so we will see what happens with that. That is one particular fight that some people within the super middleweight division will be looking at, as both of those guys are there. And I think that is like another WBC eliminator of sorts, as you do have and Billy ranked at number 2 and Carlos Gongora ranked at number 9. Of course, Caleb Plant's ranked at number 1 in the WBC, and you do have, as I said, the interim WBC champion is David Benavidez there. So you do have a good amount of activity there in the super middleweight division. But back to this fight here with Benavidez and Plant. I was talking about Jose Benavidez Sr., father and trainer of David Benavidez. He feels like his son is really focused on this fight, that he is really, really set on trying to stop Caleb Plant. And, I'll be interested to see, how he's going to be able to do it. Of course, Caleb Plant is known as, one of the, what I would say a boxer puncher, so to speak. And you kind of like add that element of puncher, I guess right now, given what Caleb Plant has been able to do in this last fight, is he's, kind of like sitting on his punches more. And, we kind of like talked about it in his fight against Darrell in October, that he was sitting on his punches more, and that was how he was able to set up Darrell for that double left hook and be able to send Darrell to the canvas. And so, they talked about that, after the fight, in the post-fight press conference there. Of course, that was, part of the fight card at the Barclays Center there. And I think that, that is another element that, I would say that people have kind of like seen in this particular bout, and, you had like, other trainers that have, talked about this fight. We had, what is it, like a conference call that happened a few days ago, when you had Sugar Hill Stewart, you had, Bob Santos, Coach Derek James, and Buddy McGirt was talking about this fight. And, I had, raised up a question in reference to, the level of activity there for David Benavidez and his, speed as far as like punches and bunches and things like that. But, I also threw in that element of, power or added power or time in there from Caleb Plant. Now, a number of those trainers there, whether it's Sugar Hill, or Bob Santos or Derek James, they were, fairly confident that David Benavidez was going to, come out the victor. Of course, Sugar Hill Stewart is the man that was, in the corner there for Darrell. And of course, Darrell did fight both of those guys there in David Benavidez and in Caleb Plant. And so, he, kind of like broke things down as far as like with David Benavidez is someone that overwhelms his opponents, and that, he kind of like is able to, eventually break down his opponents to the point where he just gets them, overwhelmed and then just beats them down. But the thing with Caleb Plant is like he's going to be able to see, I guess, what David Benavidez is going to be able to do out there and then try to, counter all of that. Shout out on the live chat once again. Slide Tendencies in the building there. Thanks for the support and all of that. So, getting back into this fight, I feel like the keys to the fight to me, one is, it's more, for me, it's more on Caleb Plant's side than it's on David Benavidez's side. I think Benavidez, is going to be David Benavidez and just come in there, to try to, do what he does. I mean, he's a guy, like I said, he's a tall guy there at super middleweight, but he's going to be the taller fighter, has longer reach. But I think it's going to be all about the movement of David Benavidez, how he's going to be able to cut off the ring, how he's going to be able to close the distance on Caleb Plant, and that if he's going to be able to swarm Caleb Plant and things like that. For me, with Caleb Plant it's more about his mobility also, but I would say moving left and right. If you got someone like David Benavidez who might try to come in and come towards you, you want to see if you could get what you can and then get out of the pocket. You kind of like seeing that particular element there against Canelo Alvarez. Now, Canelo Alvarez, even at that particular point, he still, had those issues with his knees. So, as far as like his mobility was concerned, you really couldn't, he really couldn't do that much, but he was still able to try to get in range. And when he got in range, he made every one of his punches count. That's how he was able to, eventually wear down and get to Caleb Plant, because every time that he threw shots, pretty much his hooks and stuff, and you know how he has his little expressions, or whatever it is, and he just made all of those punches count to eventually wear down Caleb Plant to where it ended up being an 11th round stoppage for Canelo Alvarez. Now here with David Benavidez, is he's going to be able to kind of like look at that particular fight and see if he could do that here against Caleb Plant, or if he's still going to, do, what he does as far as like his overall activity. One question here on the live chat from Slide Tendencies says that why are people overlooking Plant? He's, got a better resume than David Benavidez for sure. Well, yeah, I mean, he does have, his wins over Caleb Truax. Anthony Durrell, common opponent. Jose was category where he was able to, win that IBF super middleweight title. But I think it's just to the point where maybe they say like maybe some of these fans or the people that kind of like look at this fight, they're not overly impressed with what Caleb Plant has done there over the course of his career. I mean, they kind of look at his run with the IBF title, where he's had his win over Mike Lee, Vincent Figueroa, and Caleb Truex before going up against Canelo Alvarez, and maybe they don't really buy in much to that there for Caleb Plant, and so that's probably why they lean towards David Benavidez being a favorite here in this particular matchup. So I guess that's how they feel in reference to what's coming up on Saturday night, is that they feel like David Benavidez is going to be I guess he's going to wear him down, kind of similar to what happened with Plant versus Canelo. But I think that fight that Caleb Plant had there against Durrell was something where I just seen another element in his game, in that he's going to be really surprising. I think he's going to surprise David Benavidez at spots, and like I said, I was able to talk or bring up a question, with those great trainers there, Coach Derek James, Sugar Hill Stewart, Bob Santos, and Buddy McGirt was also a part of that conversation as well. And I said, listen, it's one thing to have timing, but and I said this here with the Plant's fight against Canelo, and I say this all the time with Canelo Alvarez. If you have a punch that makes him respect you, then you really have a good shot of really beating him. And so I just felt like Plant really didn't have that type of a punch to really have Canelo respect him. And so now here with David Benavidez, now he's going to be in there. He might have that same particular mentality, but one of the things that or is something that is a concern for David Benavidez is the amount of times that he gets hit, and that he pretty much like tries to walk through his opponent's shots in order to get his offense off. And so, that's going to be the thing for me, is that you're really going to see like a boxing match coming there from Caleb Plant, for those early rounds. And then after that, once we get to like rounds 5, 6, and 7, then we're going to see if there's going to be an adjustment there, coming from Jose Benavidez Sr., who's going to be in the corner for David Benavidez to, try to alter the game plan there for Caleb Plant. And then, for me with Caleb Plant, I just feel like he is going to try to work more on sitting down on his punches, which is what, Stephen Breadman Edwards has kind of like pointed out. He pointed it out after his fight with Durrell, and that, he sees that here coming up in the camp. He's going to be sitting down on more of his punches here for this particular fight. And that, I think that that's going to be a factor here, going over the rounds against David Benavidez. So, I think that that's going to be a factor, here coming up in this fight. And like I said before, I mean, there's a lot on the line for both fighters. David Benavidez, like I said, is undefeated. Has been a world champion. Wants to be a world champion again. We'll see if that eventually happens. Jose Benavidez Sr. is not very confident that Canelo Alvarez is going to face David Benavidez in the future, and it kind of like looks like after Canelo faces his or has his next fight on May 6th in Mexico, that after that he looks like he's going to be facing Dimitri Bivol once again. So it really doesn't seem like he's really inclined to go ahead and face David Benavidez if Benavidez gets to this particular fight here against Caleb Plant. So you do have that. But like you said there on the live chat, Slide Tendency says that Plant didn't fight the best dudes as champ. Yeah, outside of Canelo. Yeah, so is his resume for some isn't really much to brag about. But the whole thing with that is we for at least for me, super middleweight division, outside of Andre just coming up, whatever it is. You had David Morrell, like I said, is WBA regular champ. Some may say that super middleweight division isn't really that deep. So all you have is like you can go from the top 5, and then outside of that, you really don't have much depth. But we'll see how that goes. But here with this fight coming up on Saturday, that's going to be a real intriguing battle between those two fighters. Now, we may revisit this particular fight later on down the line. I'm not giving a prediction as of yet here, but some people, kind of like have heard what my initial picks up for this. But you do have, as far as like the odds are concerned, you do have David Benavidez as a pretty, good favorite going into this fight. Who knows what's going to happen here, within the next few days as, the fight gets closer. But it seems like a number of people are leaning towards David Benavidez there in the sports book. So that maybe you could get something off of that, or that's for entertainment purposes only. Okay, that's for entertainment purposes only. Now, going into the fight card, at least that's going on Showtime pay-per-view, you will have Jesus Ramos versus Joey Spencer. As the co-feature bout, those are two undefeated fighters there, and Jesus Ramos and Joey Spencer. That's going to be at the super welterweight division. That is, two young guys there. Of course, Jesus Ramos 19-0 with 15 wins by way of knockout. Joey Spencer is there with 16 wins, and 10 of those wins by way of knockout. You had Joey Spencer have a win over Kevin Zambrano last September, and then Jesus Ramos fought back in May at the Barclays Center against Lucas Santa Maria with a unanimous decision victory. So you do have two guys. Both of those guys are there at 22 years old, campaigning at the 154-pound division. I mean, that's something when you have two young fighters being able to have unbeaten records and be able to face each other in the ring, that pretty much says like, okay, maybe these guys are going to be next in line to be a contender, so to speak, there in the super welterweight division. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Jesus Ramos is ranked number 7 in the WBC, number 10 in the WBO. So you do have him as far as like one of those guys that could be a future contender there at the 154-pound division. And of course, you got Joey Spencer there once again. He's there at 22 years old, 16-0, and he's had a good amount of fights that he's kind of like been featured on the PBC cards, but now he's here as a co-feature bout in a Showtime pay-per-view telecast. So this is going to be a really important bout, for him at this particular stage. Now, Jesus Ramos has, kind of like fought in the Michelob Ultra Arena. He's fought in the Barclays Center. It's also, fought at the they say the Punch Bowl in Carson, California. So he's kind of like been, in and out as far as like having a number of fight fans see him, in there or in the ring, while he's been able to get his wins. So this fight here, like I said, is a good amount on the line, for both of these guys. You kind of like see this as, one of those showcase bouts where you have young guys, let's see, if they're, gonna be the future there at 154. Of course, you have a number of fighters there at 154. Undisputed champ Jamel Charlo at 154. You had Tim Tszyu that scored his win over Tony Harrison, last weekend. So and you also have Sebastian Fundora that's going to be facing Brian Mendoza next month. So Fundora is the interim champion, WBC interim champion there at 154. So it's a good number of fighters that are still there contending at 154 pounds. So that's a lot of activity there. Also, shout out on the live chat, Fighter IQ in the building, brother Ron in the building. What's going on with you? Ron is one of the more hardworking media members out there, so he does get into a number of these fights as well. So shout out to Ron from Fighter IQ in the building here on the live. But yeah, back on to like I said, this is a co-feature bout. Jesus Ramos and Joey Spencer, two undefeated 22-year-olds at the 154-pound division. And like I said, I mean, when you're there on Showtime pay-per-view, that's going to be a big stage. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be in the big stage for them. So I like to see, what happens here with this particular bout. And if they're able to, or if one of these fighters is able to make a good statement in this bout, then, maybe talk could grow a little bit for one of those fighters to, be more active in the ring. Maybe, they could be in position to, fight another one of the higher ranked contenders at the 154-pound division. Now, I wanted to bring in a guest here for this particular podcast. Of course, he's been a great contributor to the Boxing Source. He has covered a number of fights for the Boxing Source as well, based in Atlanta area. That's right. It is the Boxing Academic in the building. Boxing Academic, what's happening?
Not much. How you doing, Jane?
Doing good here. You know what I'm saying? Previewing the fights next weekend. Super middleweight, Plant Benavidez. It's going to be a big one there in the super middleweight division. And then, I was also touching on the thing there with Jesus Ramos and Joey Spencer. What do you got as far as like the fight card coming up on Saturday in Las Vegas?
So I'm not familiar with the other fights, but quite naturally, the Benavidez Plant fight. Benavidez is favored, I would imagine. He's favored to win the fight. And that could be based off, that is based off a few things. It's based off of Plant's performance against Canelo Alvarez, ending up on his back. Benavidez never really having like any real, he had times where he done got touched a little bit, but not having any real moments where we question if he was gonna win the fight per se. And him pretty much losing the belt off of not being able to get down to the weight and stuff. So he's favored to win. Quite naturally, how people think that he's gonna win, which is gonna be a war of attrition. Like he would break Plant down in a different fashion than Canelo Alvarez, but he'll hit him more so to the head than to the body and everything else, like with Canelo. And I don't think he would clean knock Plant out. I just, don't quote me on this, but this is more of a question. How many people has Benavidez straight knocked out cold like Canelo? Has it been more of like the dude Laura, where he hit him with that 20 piece, and then the ref let's just stop this. This is too many punches coming. I think. How many knockouts has he had?
Well, like I said, he's won 23 of his 26 fights by way of knockouts. So,
but have they been like Deontay Wilder knocked you out, or has it been bludgeoning knockouts?
pretty much like been, recently, of course, it's been like bludgeoning knockouts. Like, his last 3 fights, against Ron Ellis, Kyron Davis, and David Lemieux, they pretty much, been stoppage, kind of like stoppage victories there. You know what I mean? But like you said, it's pretty much been like, he's really like beat down a good number of his fighters. Even with that, what was it, the Angulo fight that he had, where he was stripped of the WBC title, like he just beat down Angulo, to force a stoppage.
Yeah. So I mean, I definitely could see him winning a fight. Like if he don't get tired, I could see him winning a fight where it is a stoppage. Like he doesn't necessarily knock Plant out, but it is a stoppage based upon them not wanting any more damage in a sense. I think this fight could go many scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously for Plant's best strategy to me, even though it's not going to be a fan-friendly one per se, is to hit and not get hit. To hit him with a 1-2 piece at most and get out of there. I'm not convinced that David Benavidez has smart enough feet to keep Plant in front of him. At least not until Plant gets tired. When Plant gets tired, then it'll be a different story. But that story could also be interesting if Benavidez gets tired as well too.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it could go so many ways. Plant can stay away from him from the early rounds, first 6 rounds. Plant get tired. Benavidez, starts closing in on the distance and letting off his shots because he need to be still to let off his punches. And then past round 6, he just start hitting Plant with more shots. It could go Plant, stay away from him for the first 6 rounds. Benavidez get hit with a few shots. Plant obviously get hit with a couple of shots, but not as many. And then the latter half, he started getting hit with more shots, but then he's tired, and then Plant is tired. So it's sort of like, up in the air at that point. So I could see Plant potentially getting the lead, but it's going to be what you like. Like if you like the person who land more shots and they're softer shots, then he'll have a lead on your scorecard. But then if you like the person who get in the 1 or 2 big shots, it's like the Tim Bradley Manny Pacquiao 1 fight.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bradley won 2 minutes and 30 seconds of a lot of them rounds, and then Pacquiao came on at the end and landed some big shots or whatever. Yeah, man, I can see this fight going so many ways. I think if you had a smart bet, obviously you would pick Benavidez to win. But it just really depends on his win. It depends on Caleb's sort of will. If Caleb don't get hit with nothing clean, then it's going to be an interesting fight.
Yeah.
If he in there and he just get hit with like clean shots, then it may be interesting, not in his favor. But I can see this going so many different ways. It's hard. Like,
well, like I was saying in reference to betting or the bet thing or whatever it is, or how the lines are going. On Bet MGM, it looks like they got, straight up, they got David Benavidez, as the favorite, like minus 300 favorite straight up. But like on the 3-way with Benavidez, a minus 275, and Caleb Plant at plus 225, and the draw is plus 1,600. So they really don't feel like this particular, bout is, going to end. I don't know if it's going to really be a close bout. At least it seems like that on the lines.
What about knockout? What about for knockout?
Now I may have to, look at other lines, in other places for where the knockout thing is, or I have to like look for that. So I'll be able to see if I could find that. But what I was saying like earlier, in reference to Caleb Plant, my thing is how well is he going to be able to move laterally against David Benavidez? So I feel like David Benavidez's style is more of like a straightforward, overwhelming style to try to, swarm you and get on top of you. But as far as like, having the ability to move your feet a certain way to try to cut off the ring or get your fighter to the ropes, then I'm not sure if Benavidez has been able to get to that particular point yet. Like I would like compare it to what we saw last weekend with Tim Tszyu and Tony Harrison. And that Tim Tszyu is known for, trying to come forward and try to cut off the ring against his opponent. But with Tony Harrison, at least in that particular fight, Tony Harrison, voluntarily backed himself to the ropes in order to try to, use his offense or do anything like that, instead of, kind of like working behind his jab and try to move around the center of the ring behind his jab. In this particular fight here, I think Caleb Plant is going to, try to work more on his jab and then moving off to the side in order to have David Benavidez reset in order to try to get his offense off. So we'll see what happens in the latter rounds if Caleb Plant does end up getting tired, or if he's going to be able to have the ability to try to get through those late rounds.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I'm assuming that based upon Benavidez fights and him not having to do that before, that Plant will be able to use his lateral movement and will be able to like get away. It's going to be real close because I mean, Plant effectively stayed away from Canelo Alvarez for, I don't know how many rounds, but he stayed away for at least half the fight, right? And then once he started getting tired, that's when Canelo could get close to him. So
yeah,
it should be a good fight. I mean, I'm glad that you brought up the Tszyu and Harrison fight, because it's it's the same sort of spirit of the fight where you said he come forward and press the action, but then Tony Harrison, it just seemed like he I don't know, something about him mentally, like he couldn't pull the trigger or didn't want it or something, it wasn't the same. I mean, the wars do that to you, but it looked like a different Tony Harrison, in terms of letting shots go and just whatever, maybe he wasn't prepared because it was not enough time. But all I'm saying is it's a good comparison. But in this fight, I do feel that at least Caleb will, he may not throw a zillion shots, but he at least gonna throw a few shots at you.
Right. Yeah.
And what's gonna be really interesting, will his jab and his right hand keep Benavidez off? Now, if we come into round one or whatever, and his shots to like deter Benavidez don't deter him, and he feel like they don't hurt him or like they don't affect him, right, then we may not get to round 6. I'm assuming that Caleb jab gonna give him a power jab. He'll be able to step over, maybe throw a right hand, catch him clean, and make him think about something. I'm assuming he gonna throw hard enough shots to keep him off. But if he not able to do that, then yeah, them betting lines are very much right, and it's gonna be a knockout by bludgeoning.
Yeah, I mean that is what those lines are, doing. They for what is this? Caesar Sportsbook, here on the lines, it has the over under at 9.5. So they kind of like feel like this particular bout, is gonna end within within that 9, kind of like that round 9, round 10 range or something like that, and that, it's kind of, what is this? Like they're leaning towards Benavidez winning by knockout. Like it's minus 160 or whatever it is, 150 to 160, for Benavidez to win by knockout. But, like you said, in reference to Caleb Plant, he has to be able to, have some type of offensive punch that'll make David Benavidez respect him. Whether it's a power jab and like I said, I mean, they feel like Caleb Plant is sitting on more of his punches. So, maybe a power jab and then something following behind that could, really do something there for Caleb Plant. But, I think it's more of like he has to, kind of like work behind that and then get out of the pocket, a little bit more. Keep having David Benavidez reset and then test Benavidez's ability to cut off the ring and try to, cut off the movement of Caleb Plant. So that's the thing.
If I was Plant, obviously I'm assuming I got good wind to do this, but test Benavidez's ability to cut off the ring and move to a spot. So we right in front of each other, move to a spot. Benavidez is lugging behind you, following you. Plant as in like plant your feet and throw hard shots. You know what I'm saying? Catch him walking in and like try to catch him coming in with like hard shots. It's a double-sided sword to that. If you do that and them shots don't affect him, then it's over with. But if you also do that and he feel that, like you might catch him slipping in a sense, like, I think Plant does have enough power to buzz him. Knock him out, buzz him. Yes. But if he sit on his shots, as you just said, and he walk him into shots and then he like move and walk him into a shot and like try to take that man head off and time him, that's going to be how he get his respect. And then he just do that going between the jab and stepping off to the side and then stepping off, laterally or whatever and back and then making Benavidez come to him and then just walk him into shots, like hard shots. You got to get a man, like you said, something to deter him. So, but I mean, it should be a good fight while it lasts.
I mean, I feel like it will be a very good fight while it lasts on this end. Like I said, it's pretty much more on what Caleb Plant is going to be able to do here against David Benavidez. I think, with Benavidez, even though, he feels like he's, really working hard as far as like trying to, get to the point where he wants to stop Caleb Plant, that he wants to, try to hospitalize him, like he said, in the days leading up to this particular bout. I just feel like, with Caleb Plant, it's more about, what he's going to be able to do here in the ring, and that he knows that like a lot is on the line in this particular instance, and that, he can't really, have like a step back in this instance. And I also feel like, the activity between both fighters, might be a factor here as well. I think with Caleb Plant having his last fight being in October, might be good for him because he is able to have that in-ring experience, going in there, not just having his father there in the corner, but also having Breadman Edwards there in his corner as well. So I think that is something that is a factor. Also, he's been doing work there over in Las Vegas. I know that, maybe I think Benavidez is also based in another part of Las Vegas as well. But, Caleb Plant, has been doing his work there in Las Vegas. And that, he kind of like feels like he's already, in the element of being in the city or being around that atmosphere. And like I said, having that fight against Canelo Alvarez, that kind of like is something that he feels helps him in this upcoming bout coming up on Saturday.
He gonna have to show up because he got his hands full. Because it's it ain't gonna be a lot of people rooting for him as the betting line say. So I mean, he got an opportunity to prove a lot of people wrong, and it's one thing to do it against Darrell, but yeah, I mean, if he beat Benavidez, that's a nice feather on his cap. But I'm not sure he want to really go back in Canelo direction.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, like I said, Canelo Alvarez has, a couple of, looks like he may have a couple of fights on this schedule there for 2023. And I don't think the winner of this particular fight is going to be one of them. So he might not have that particular issue there. A couple of things that I kind of like seeing here. I think this is, kind of like going into, this being a grudge match. of course, you had like the story from years ago, Caleb Plant being around the camp there and him having a little bit of a scuffle with Jose Benavidez Jr. And, also, in this particular lead up to this bout, he kind of, trolled David Benavidez by buying the domain to davidbenavidez.com to, have it redirect over to his, merchandise, selling his merchandise and stuff too. So, maybe he was trying to get into David Benavidez's head here leading up to this particular bout. So I don't know if that is going to, have something, on the side of David Benavidez where he's not, completely focused. But we'll see going into fight week here in Las Vegas as, the dates get closer into this particular fight. Now I was, getting into the thing here with the undercard. Like I said, you have Jesus Ramos against Joey Spencer. They're on the co-featured bout in the Showtime pay-per-view portion. You're going to also have Chris Colbert versus Jose Rayo Valenzuela. They're in the lightweight division in a 10-round bout. And you also will have Abel Ramos going up against Cody Crowley in the welterweight division. Now, the one thing that I'll get into here is this bout at lightweight with Rayo Jose Valenzuela against Chris Colbert. Now, Chris Colbert hasn't been in the ring since, he lost to Hector Luis Garcia, last February. And that was, in the super featherweight division. He lost by, unanimous decision there. He got knocked down in that fight. A number of people felt like, after halfway through the bout, he felt like they said like he didn't really put in much of an effort to try to get back into this fight. So now he's coming back after that, extended layoff, now in the lightweight division against Jose Valenzuela, who, was a fighter that was coming up in the ranks there, at lightweight until he fought Edwin De Los Santos last September and was knocked out in that particular bout. So both of these fighters are coming off losses there of, big losses there that kind of like, stalled the progress of their careers. So this one here, it's almost like a crossroads bout of sorts. There for these two combatants. I mean, you got, Rayo there at 23 years old. And then, Chris Colbert is also, like I said, young guy coming up. Like I said, he's coming up in the ranks at super featherweight, but now he's here in the lightweight division and going up against Jose Valenzuela. And, I feel like this is going to be a really tough out here for Chris Colbert, especially, coming off of a bout where he looked like, he was roughed up a little bit. Hector Garcia got to him, on a number of occasions in that particular bout. And now he's coming back, and he's coming back here at, 130 pounds or the 130-pound weight limit. So, I'm, really concerned on how he's going to be able to come out on this particular bout here against Jose Valenzuela there, man. Boxer Academic, you got something here on Chris Colbert coming up in this fight?
I'm not as maybe the day of the fight I'll be a little bit more interested when I see the fights, but I'm probably not as
so it's like
I was trying to think of something positive to say. Don't let Matt hear this.
Yeah, well, I mean, brother MVO is, of course, still, frolicking around the bars of New York City, so he probably won't be able to, get in on the action this week there. But you do have, that particular bout. I'm really concerned about how that's going to go down there. Brother Terrell checking in here. See, See, come on, man. Y'all gotta get off my man box academic, man. Brother Steph's in the building. Here, checking in, man. Good to you'll see you on here on the live chat. But like I said, you do have that. You also do have, in the welterweight division, you do have Abel Ramos taking on Cody Crowley in the welterweight division. Cody Crowley, some people feel like he's, waiting around to see what's happening at the top of the welterweight division. Yes, he did have his big win over Abdul Kakarov, a couple years ago, where Abdul Kakarov was a, top-ranked contender for the IBF title at one point. But ever since then, Cody Crowley has had, a couple of fights in the interim. After that, well, he only had like a one fight there against Josecito Lopez. So this is like his second fight since defeating Kujatio Abdul-Kakarov. And he's going up against, Abel Ramos. Of course, veteran Abel Ramos has faced Omar Figueroa Jr. Stopped Omar Figueroa Jr. He stopped Bryant Perella, who, I think he went up to the 154-pound division and had a draw against Tony Harrison. So he does have some key wins there. He did fall short against Lucas Santa Maria in his last bout in February of last year. But he does, know that there's a lot on the line here in this particular bout. And for those that you're just checking out this live chat here on the Boxing Source YouTube channel, we do have an interview there with Abel Ramos ahead of this bout against Cody Crowley. But I want to bring in another guest here to talk, talk about this fight card here. Coming in from the California side has been a guest here on the Boxing Source. Glad for him to get back on here. Brother Steph is in the building. What's going on?
Hey, man. What's going on? What's up, academic? Y'all just talking a little boxing, get ready for the important fight week we got, huh?
Yeah, man.
It's a good one.
Coming up, man. For
Definitely.
Sure.
Definitely. I'm excited. I'm very excited. Will you be in the building? Will you be covering?
Should be going up there. Should be scheduled to cover about there on Saturday night. So we'll see. What we got. Like I said, I'll be there with photography and stuff like that. So you'll probably have like a article that will be on the boxingsource.net in reference to this particular fight. So y'all check that out. We got boxing articles on there. You got the boxing rankings on there. You have pound for pound lists on there as well. So y'all be sure to check out the boxingsource.net with all of the boxing news that goes on around this area and stuff like that too. So be sure to check.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will. So, what we on? You were talking about Ramos, right?
Yeah, brother. Well, yeah, Abel Ramos there. Like I said, I mean, we chopped it up with him on Friday. So he, like I said, he's ready to go. He's been, training there in Casa Grande, Arizona, before getting up to Las Vegas for this bout against Cody Crowley. And, he could, really spoil the show as far as like, handing Cody Crowley his first loss here in the welterweight division. And, I said like Cody Crowley, was, been floating around there in the welterweight division as a contender. It's just that they haven't, necessarily really positioned him in a good spot, so to speak, in some of these, sanctioning bodies. But we'll see here what he's going to be able to do against Abel Ramos. Like I said, that's, had fights against notable fighters at the welterweight division. Right.
I'm can't speak. I'm gonna peep that interview. Kind of give me a little more insight on Mr. Ramos. Yeah, man. I like the card a lot. I like the undercard a lot. I can't wait to talk about a little bit more of the guys. But since we're talking about this fight in particular, this was a good fight for Cody Crowley. Another Cody Crowley sighting, and of course, an important fight for him. He's coming off a long layoff, but he's a tough fighter. I've seen him fight about 3 times live, maybe not in person, but just I've seen him fight. He's a tough guy, right? He's a guy who'll come forward and will mix it up with his toughness, and he's got a good right hook, I think. But he's terrific welterweight, man. And he's up against an oldie, but I think he, you know, I think he'll pull this out. Hopefully he'll get the knockout. What is he like? 22, 23 wins, something like that.
Well, Crowley
Yeah.
is 21-0.
21-0. There you go.
Yeah, but he has 9 wins by way of knockout. So his last knockout victory was in 2018.
I feel like the last time I saw him, he was that was kind of like a grueling matchup. Didn't it go like 10, 11 rounds, something like that?
He's been in 10 round bouts. He's had one 12-round bout before, but outside of that, he's had a majority of his recent bouts as 10 round or scheduled for 10 rounds. So it went the full 10 rounds.
Who does he, if you know, who's his trainer and who does he kind of spar with, if you know?
I'm not sure who he trains with because I think it's he had his dad around his corner, but his dad transitioned last year. So I'm not all too certain who's like there around this corner, but I could see if I could pull that up here in a moment though.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of been a concern for me as of late. I'm always wondering who guys are training with and or who is their trainer, so I can kind of picture their style and versus their opponent's style. So
well, it looks like Ibn Carlson is trainer for Cody Crowley.
Not bad then. Not bad. I like Crowley, man. Or Crowley. He got good size. Man, what was he like? 5'9", 5'10"? He seemed like a kind of a beefy dude.
Yeah.
Might even be taller than that.
5'10".
And he's Canadian, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Shout out to the Canadians, man. They got good syrup and good comedians. So
oh boy.
Yeah, no. What about you, Academic? What do you think about the fight?
Well, I don't really watch him that much. I've watched a couple fights, but not enough to give a solid prediction. James, I don't need your smart looks, man.
Right, he's a rugged guy, though. Kind of reminds me of like a real guy. Jake Paul.
Yeah, he's a rugged guy. I mean, I saw the fight that he had against Kujatil, in Carson, California. Watched it on TV there. I think that was on it was on Showtime, and he did have something where he did go down to the canvas, but he was able to get up from that. But he just kind of like overwhelmed Kujatil over the course of that bout. So he was more of like you said, a rough, rugged guy, as Steph was saying, and that Kujatil wasn't necessarily prepared for all of that. So that's how Crowley was able to get that victory in that particular instance. So you did have that, and then of course he fought veteran Josecito Lopez in Arlington as well, and he just was outworking him on in that particular fight card too. I mean, that one, that was part of the Spence Ugas undercard. So he did kind of like show like he's a hard rugged fighter there in the ring there at welterweight. So maybe he's gonna try to do that here against Abel Ramos or whatnot. But Ramos says that he's really prepared for this, and that he's been in there. Of course, with his with his family there. You got Abel Ramos there. And like I said, it's going to be part of the co-feature bout too. So they've been working hard over in the camp in Arizona, preparing for the bout for their respective bouts. That is.
I can't wait to talk about Junior here in a moment too.
Yeah,
can't wait to talk about that fight.
Yeah, because Jesus Ramos Jr. and Joey Spencer. That's going to be a really, really good bout there at their particular points of their careers, man.
Right. Couple things before we get there. I want to ask you, JB, because you corrected me. You said that Crowley's only been in 10 rounders. Now, do you think like there could be a conditioning problem, or there is a conditioning problem with him? Because I've heard Jamel Herring come out and talk about reasons why they do 10 and 12 rounders and whatnot. It really depends on the fighter and whomever requested it, or the A side kind of stuff. But I'm just asking about his conditioning. Is there something to worry about there with Crowley?
Nah, I don't think so. He's had one particular bout that was 12 rounder. That was a national, like a regional title there in Canada a few years ago. But outside of that is basically been like 10-round bouts. So he's kind of like I said, he's been able to do his work in his past few bouts. All unanimous decision victories there for those 10-round bouts that he's had. So I don't think that stamina should be much of an issue for him here in this upcoming bout that's scheduled for 12 rounds. So I think that's going to be one thing that he's going to be fairly confident in, is that he would be able to go the full 12 rounds there against Abel Ramos. But like I said, Abel Ramos is been in the gym, been working hard out there, so he's definitely ready to take on take on Cody Crowley in this particular instance. They just feel like they feel like his experience is going to be the key factor here in this bout against Cody Crowley. That he's like Abel Ramos has been like in a number of high profile bouts. Yes, he did fall short against Yordenis Ugas in their bout a few years ago. But like I said, he's kind of had wins against Omar Figueroa and against Brian Perella recently too. So this is not something that
I forgot about that. Yeah, the Perella win. Oh wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Under the road, under the carpet there, people could forget about that.
So I mean that's something there to kind of like look out for in references. Like you can't really sleep on Abel Ramos in this particular bout at all.
Right.
So,
do you think this is a? Someone asked me this other day, and I kind of got caught on my back foot. Do you think this is a pay-per-view worthy fight, or a fight card as a whole?
A number of people have said that it's not. But in this particular instance, you gotta put it to the point where okay, we got these two, because it's pretty much controlled by the headlining bout, and so with the the profiles of both of those fighters, that is what makes it a pay-per-view telecast. I mean, now you got these other fights there that like say for example like Fandora versus Mendoza coming up on April 8th. That's a Showtime card. They'll have other fight cards that are part of like Showbox, or like I said, within regular Showtime. So it's more about one, if they have the time slot available for these particular fights or fight cards for it to be on Showtime or regular Showtime, or if it's controlled by the amount or the price point for the fighters in the main event to make it be either whether it's like a Showtime or Showtime pay-per-view bout. And for me, it's more about the price tag for Benavidez and Plant that makes this a pay-per-view bout, for pay-per-view card.
Yes, sir. Fair enough. I'm not trying to make that a big deal. I was just asking. Right on, though. Right on. Yeah. When I was asked that question, like that was the first time someone asked me, so I hadn't really given it much thought.
Yeah, true.
But I like the card, man. I like from top to bottom. I like the card. But yeah, let's talk about Ramos Jr. and Spencer.
Yeah, like I was saying here earlier, man. Two young guys, two guys undefeated. They're in the super welterweight division. Ramos is there. He's ranked in a couple of sanctioning bodies. So now you got Joey Spencer there. Has been coming up the ranks, but this one here, this is like a definite step up bout for Joey Spencer in this particular instance. And like I said, this is a co-feature bout on a Showtime pay-per-view card in the MGM Grand Garden Arena. So you're gonna have a number of eyes, there watching this live, for both fighters.
Right, right. And I'm really excited to, since it's here we are fight week, that we finally get to see these guys on the podium and talking about it from them and their perspective. So I'm very excited for this. Ramos Jr. is actually my favorite prospect. I'm not big on prospects. I'm just like, when people start talking about it, I'm just like, man, just let me know when they are ready to face the top guy, then I'll start judging them then.
Mhm.
But if I had to choose, I like this kid a lot. I think he could beat up a lot of other high profile prospects, quote unquote. But listen to this, Jay. Man, I think Spencer's gonna beat him. Oh my goodness. Yeah. A lot of people, and get a little undecided when I say that, but and rightfully so, because Spencer's had a lot of good backing in years past, and he's supposed to do this, and then they put him back on the back burner to let him kind of do his thing. But no better time than to come on out now, right? Eventually, you're gonna have to fight, for that namesake. So I'm kind of just feeling lucky and choosing him off of that. But he needs to have a performance. He needs to have a perfect performance against this guy, because Ramos Jr. is nothing to play with. He's a great counterpuncher, hits very hard, very young. I just haven't liked his last two performances, his last two outings. They were just, I thought he just could have, I just thought he could have fought better, within his pedigree and what his style is. Because again, he's a counterpuncher, but he hits so hard he can, he can be a bruiser, and he's athletic enough to kind of, really do whatever, because he's so young. He's been fighting grown men for a long time, and then he comes from a boxing family, so he is really that good. But I think it's going to play right into what Spencer has to prove. Spencer's going to have to prove his namesake, like I said, and that he has fighting skill, which I think he has. He's just going to have to put it together. And I think he really will. I've been talking like this for like 10 days now. I think he's going to spoil it, man. I really think he's going to spoil the young Ramos right here. This is it. It's like you said, it's a co-feature, and I'm just super excited for it. I think at this point for Spencer now, it just, like a lot of other guys too, it's time to blossom and go look for the necessary training you need. I'm not saying, go trainer hopping like that. I'm saying, these guys who hang out with their dads long enough, that's cool, that's great, but you are where you're at now, and it's time to get better, right? Go work on those strengths and your weaknesses, of course, but perfect that style that you're trying to do, and know where to look further than a professional. So I think I'm looking for those type of intangibles within this fight. And then Ramos, really, like I said, I wasn't really impressed with his last couple of outings, even though I think he's my favorite prospect. He could be better, man. He could be better. But this is at that 54 weight where everyone can relate. And it seems as of late in the last 4 to 6 months, as far as putting fights together, the PBC are moving their young guys. So think Vito, think Spencer, think Ramos. There's another cat out there, because after watching Harrison get blown out, those guys are done, man. Him, her, J-Rock. This is why I said over a year ago to Rich, I was like, nah, 54 is not as strong as y'all think it is. It's just dudes are willing to fight. So we are in this evolution and same thing with Top Rank. They got Xander. There's Conwell coming up, who's floating around. A lot of guys with Matchroom, ammo in them. Like the middleweights it's changing. It's changing, man. So this is a good start with all the young guys, because Tank's card was great. They had a lot of middleweights there shining, doing their thing. So I'm excited for this. Really, really excited to see these guys. And I'm gonna call Spencer.
I mean that's a pretty interesting choice there, given with Joey Spencer. But I guess it's kind of going off of what you're saying in reference to Jesus Ramos Jr. Like I feel like I guess you don't feel all too impressed with his recent performances. Now he has won against Brian Mendoza, who's going to be fighting Sebastian Fedor on April 8th. We had the fight against Vladimir Hernandez and against Luke Santa Maria, which that fight against Luke, he was coming up against a guy that was moving up after beating Abel Ramos by decision. So it was Santa Maria's next fight was against against Jesus Ramos Jr. too. So that kind of like was something there. But Luke Santa Maria, is kind of like a fledgling contender there at the welterweight and super welterweight division. So
right,
you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Unless he just gets mauled, talking about Spencer. The time is now. He has to prove that he can fight, and you're in there with, like I said, what I think is the best prospect, man. And there's a litany of guys who are right there. So, basically just a really good talent, man. This is super welterweight, so he don't have to prove it, man. And I'm just choosing Spencer, man. I want to see both guys succeed, of course, but you got to choose one. And this is one boxing match, and I'm gonna roll with him. We're gonna see what's gonna happen. I'm gonna feel real dumb if he loses, but I'm gonna roll with him.
I mean, it is a definite step up fight for Joey here in this particular instance. I know that with Jesus Jr., they're kind of like building him up to be one of those next guys. There at 154 pounds, they had already put him, in a position to win a minor title. There at 154 pounds, and so like you were saying, he's kind of like been in there in a little bit of showcase fights or whatnot. There at 154, and kind of like bringing him up fairly quickly. While on the flip side, there with Joey Spencer, they're kind of like bringing him along fairly slowly. Building up to the undefeated record that he has. So it's kind of like they're on two different levels when it comes to the amount of experience or the level of fighters that both of these guys have faced up to this particular point. So, Joey Spencer is going to, really have to, show himself here in this bout against Jesus Ramos Jr. And, to revisit the thing there with David Benavidez and Caleb Plant. So much on the line there at super middleweight, interim WBC, super middleweight championship fight. One thing I didn't quite touch on earlier was, the recent, I guess it's been, recent news in reference to the thing they were playing Benavidez, for some reason, like some news thing that came up in reference to Caleb Plant, as far as like where he was kind of like doing some of his work over in the gyms in Las Vegas. And so it's kind of like been some conflicting reports as far as like, what he did there or what he had worked out at one of the gyms that he was at. And so, we kind of like, tried to, he went in there and he like got in front of that in reference to what was going on. I mean, but it's kind of like a case of, what happens sometimes there in gyms, and that, these fighters that work in these gyms, or if they go to one gym to another, you got to have, you have something sorted out there ahead of time. And he says that he was able to, honor what he was supposed to do there. And so it kind of like got into a little bit of a conflict or a little bit of a, disagreement to where, it just escalated to where it almost seemed like he was put on blast of some sort. But he's saying like it wasn't really all that big. Like I did my part, I did, what I had to do in reference to, this particular agreement. So, I guess it's gonna. I guess they're gonna have it cleared up here within the next few days or so. Leading into his fight here against David Benavidez. But I don't think that it will be much of a factor that will really bother him leading into this particular bout here, as fight week starts up and the first few events happen on Wednesday.
Yeah, it seems like as of late, maybe just this latter part of this last week, a lot of drama queen type stuff is either being released or that these guys are doing. I haven't made too much of a big deal out of it. I'm just really excited to see him in the fight. I've also said this in the past, in the last 12 months to almost 20. In fact, I said this to Ernie Given. I said, because we're talking about super middleweights. I think we're talking about Canelo, but anyway, look, in the past, PBC has been reluctant to move their middleweight division, as far as like top names, things like that, or fights that us fight fans want to see. But now we're getting it, man. This is a really good fight. This is the best fight. Um, I told my brother this the other day. I said, if Caleb wins, man, he's the number one super middleweight in the division. I think he's the best super middleweight in all the division if he wins the fight. Um, as far as David winning, because I'm rolling with David, and I'm not mad at anyone who choose whatever fight, because this is kind of I guess you could say 50-50 fight, but both styles are different, right? Coming to the table, and that's what makes the fight, styles. So this is going to be a really, really good fight. Kind of back to Caleb real fast, so I'll finish him out. I think he can knock down and or knock out David, but I think he would have to do that 6 rounds in. I think he would have to really be on his toes in whatever he's trying to do as far as being or just productive there. He would have to speed that up exponentially. Why? Because David is like a major league pitcher. Think Verlander of 2010 MVP year. He's going to get stronger as the innings go, as the rounds go. He's going to get stronger, faster, more hungrier. That's just his style. So the only way to do that is to speed up your own gig on what you're trying to get done in there. I expect Caleb to shine. Really, he's the boxer puncher here. We're finding out that he can puncher by his last couple outings, by being in there and being able to slow some guys down, like Canelo and or knock out Durrell. So he's going to be in there doing his thing, showing his IQ. And I also think he would have to kind of keep this fight in the middle to kind of appease the judges and give them the kind of do that Bivol thing where it makes him seem like he's doing a lot in there, by mixing it up and showing what he can do, keep his jab out there and just be strong, be confident. And I think him and his trainer, they resemble that. They exude confidence. I think that's what Breadman has brought to him. And only just sharpening his skills and pointing out some intangibles that he really, really needed for his professional career going forward. So I like that and love that about them. About David, I got David winning this fight. However way, sometimes it's kind of hard to gauge because for the first time in a long time, especially with the lead up and all of that, all access and all that kind of stuff, he's kind of showing some character flaws again, where I'm like, man, that's whatever. But I know he's just building it up because.
What kind of character flaws? I haven't watched it.
Like he really letting, kind of going back to that press conference academic, like he really let Caleb get under his skin, and he was just blurting out stuff and saying stuff, and even Dad got involved and whatnot. And again, I get it, they're confident, they're very confident they're going to knock this man out, but it's like and I hesitate like that because David, if you think about it, and I've been a YouTube boxer fan for a long time, at least about a year now. He is, he's been on so many channels. He's been on Friends channels. He's been explaining himself. I've seen a lot of improvement in those areas. When that cocaine stuff comes up, he addresses it and moves on. I think him moving out of Arizona into Seattle, he's all business, all gas. Like I follow him a lot. See, I follow that Jim Benavidez team. I like all those guys. I like that style, the way they fight. So think Pacheco, the way they close distance. So
he's Rail in that camp too. So
so that's a good stable. I like that stable. And they're all business. They're all gas. Team Benavidez. So I'm seeing a lot of that, but I'm kind of getting lost here. But coming back to him, so I expect him to be really strong. And people always say his footwork. I always argue the town with people. I'm like, his footwork's bad. No, it's not. It's perfect for what he is doing and trying to do, which is what? Get into position to release a barrage of punches. Some say it's weak, because they don't think he's got one punch knockout power. He probably doesn't, but we haven't seen that in such a young career of his yet. Knock out someone in one punch. Maybe
Right.
early on, but like when it really matters, like a match like this, of course. So, and he's really strong in the clinch. He's really strong when he's trying to unclinch and stuff. He that's his big man advantage there. So it's going to be real technical for a while. And frankly, it could go one of two ways. He could go in there and use what I just said he was going to do, or he could go in there and just be deliberately a monster and just not let up. And I think ultimately that's what's going to happen, and just stop Caleb, because like everyone keeps saying, Caleb's got cardio issues. That's still to be seen. But I know if he doesn't get David out of there early, David's going to get stronger. He's going to get really, really strong and tough. So, and then also Breadman's got a good game plan already.
Mm-hmm.
He's fought David back a year ago around this time. So we shall see.
Yeah.
It's a good, really, really good style. You got the boxer puncher versus the just aggressive monster, man. Because I was listening to one more thing, I'll wrap it up. You got to think about who David grew up around. He grew up around Triple G, idolizing guys like him and Usyk. That kind of, it's his style intermingled with that and the Mexican style. That's why he's so aggressive. Yeah. So it's one for the ages. And then quickly on Rayo and Colbert, I'm excited for that too. I love that fight, man. Love that fight. This is a great card, right, Jay? It's a great card, man. Both guys coming off losses. I like Rayo a lot. He got a lot of breakthrough last year, didn't he not? I think that Deontay Wilder fight weekend, or Tank and Rolly weekend, really. That's when I started to hear a lot of gas with him. But I like his style. He reminds me of like a classic kind of unorthodox Mexican boxer, because he's a little slower than most, but I know he's got a rage in him because that's who he's training with. He just likes, no, I don't want to describe him like that. I want to describe him like this. A little Adrian Broner, because he likes to be fanciful and admire his work because he thinks he's that good. But he's a classic boxer. He knows what he's doing in there. I just think with the Edwin loss, he was beat before he even knew it, man. Because if it were up to him, he was going to stay in there until he literally got stopped. But the ref did a good job. I don't know if he knew him and liked him like that, but that was a good stop, man, because he got beat before. He was just taking an ass whooping, man, even though he knocked that guy down too. Sure. And then Colbert, I try not to listen to too much fight fans with him. He just, look, man, that's a classic case of a shit talker gone wrong. So he's just got to prove that he can fight. That's all. And if he does win, he beats another good boxer and he's right back in the mix. But it's funny, I play mythical matchups with Colbert all the time, whether it's 130, 135. I want to see him fight a lot of different people because he's got the athletic boxing style to do it. So it's a win-win for him. So and then this card is just shows, along with the others schedule that they release, and it's funny, it goes till about June with those other fights. Just nothing but consistency of fire from Showtime, aka Paramount Plus. You know what I'm saying? So shouts to you, Steven Espinoza and company. You guys are nothing but fire, man. Consistent. There's a lot of good fights like this one coming up.
Yeah. By saying, what did you want to add to what's going down?
So this is clever, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's me.
I was just making sure. You change names like every week on me. I'm just messing with you. Sure, but it seemed like you took all my points, clever, and you negated them, man. Like, what's going on?
What, like which one?
So the 2 points that I guess I said were that he has bad feet. I will rescind that and say, to put a polarization on it is wrong. He doesn't have overly educated feet. That's a more politically correct way to describe it. But I can't say he has bad feet, but his feet ain't overly educated. And then the other thing you said was you said people may say something. I forgot what the other point was. But I said I was one of the people who said whatever you said.
Well, quickly, academic. You know, it's almost, you know, it's love and hate really, because you know, like I said, you think he doesn't have good as footwork. I think he's got good. When I say he's got good footwork, I say he has good footwork for what he's trying to doing. Think he's a really big guy coming down to the middleweights who's actually still fast enough. In fact, thus far, faster than everyone he's faced to get done what he's trying to get done in there. Like people think he just, like this comment, he just walks in front of you and he needs people to stand in front of him. So he's just walking in front of you. But think the way he parries shots, he's not a slick boxer like Caleb, someone who's moving on the back foot, your classic athletic black man like that. Think Devin Haney, the way he slips shots and uses the Philly shell. That's not how a style like David maneuvers. He parries shots and slips them with his hands and his elbows because he's big enough, strong enough to take the damage. But he's also fast enough to get in position, get on the inside. Notice he's always chasing his guys down after he hurts them. So that's what I mean when I say he's got good footwork. If he didn't have good footwork, he wouldn't be able to even do that. So now he's going up against Caleb Plant, who is a slick and classic boxer, the way his ring generalship works. Someone who can act, you know, with athletic movement, who can go laterally or even go forward, zagging, whatever, or even use the triangle as he goes towards the ropes. A lot of guys get, and that's another good point. Watch that. When Caleb is going into that triangle, think how Eubank got knocked out. Shout out to Stormy B. When he goes backward and starts working on that back foot and trying to draw or get him in position, whatever he's trying to do, whether it's off a jab, anything like that, he's going to have to be careful because David's fast enough to get in position, get on the inside, and disrupt all that. He could really get caught up, man, and it could be bad. And hopefully, at that point, he's smart enough to be clinchable, because if he doesn't, you're just going to be taking unnecessary shots. No reason to stand there and get beat on.
Yeah, before you got on, I was talking about the fight that happened last week with Tim Tszyu and Tony Harrison, where Tony Harrison just voluntarily backed up to the ropes and not even have Tim Tszyu try to work to try to cut off the ring against Tony Harrison. And when you do that, you're kind of like conserving the energy of Tim Tszyu. So once he's there in close quarters with you, he's able to, you know, do what he wants with a number of the punches that he has. And so I don't think Caleb Plant will really want to try to voluntarily back up to the ropes. The only way that you could do something like that is if you have full and complete confidence that what you have is able to seriously hurt your opponent. But if you don't have that, then that particular strategy shouldn't. Well, I don't think it will work very well. So I think for Caleb Plant, his best strategy here is to, you know, try to keep the fight in the center of the ring, move on the outside of the center of the ring, and just have, you know, David Benavidez stationary. But if you're going to have David Benavidez to the point where he could get to you, then he really doesn't have to worry about cutting off the ring. Like you said, he could get Caleb Plant to the ropes and do a catch and shoot, but use that activity with his hands in order to, you know, eventually wear down Caleb Plant. So Plant getting to the ropes wouldn't, you know, I don't think that it would be a good idea in his sense.
All right. So, academic, you see where I was going though, like with my footwork definition there.
Yeah. So which is why I changed my description and I changed the wording of bad because I do agree with you. For what he does, he is effective at what he does. The only, you know, pushback that I will say is that for what he does, I will call that a first order sort of effect. Like, I recall there was a fight within his last 2 or 3 fights where he was following somebody around. Don't quote me, but I remember him following somebody around, and then the announcer is like mentioning it. I'm thinking I got the right person in my mind. But if what I'm remembering is true, he has the first order effects, which is using his footwork to get him in place to throw his shots. But then when you get to the second order, which is truly cutting the ring off, if he is indeed the one who I'm thinking of, who he was just following the dude around and really wasn't landing as many shots as one would expect him to, then to me that's not as educated a feat if you can't cut the ring off to be able to land those shots.
Maybe you're talking about the Ronald Ellis fight.
Was that the bubble fight? Was that the bubble fight?
Yeah, that was a bubble fight.
Yeah. He did not look too particularly. First off, he lost on the scales, so his mind was everywhere, man. You know, I'm making excuses. He was fucked up then, but that wasn't a good performance. But he got the job done, man. I mean, he still stopped that guy. You know, academic. I would just say, first off, I hope you're wrong, and then secondly, I would say, hey, man, have you seen how lean and mean David looks to be that big of a man?
Right.
Dude's got a six-pack now, so he just think about what he could do as a fat man already. Imagine him lighter on his feet. So I'll let you use your imagination on that, and I can't wait for Saturday, man. This is gonna be a good fight week. Boy, that weigh-in's gonna be nuts. There's gonna be commotion. People are going to get pushed. It's going to be crazy, man.
Well, there's going to be commotion in the press conference that's going to happen on Thursday, you know, before the, you know, weigh-in happens there on Friday. So, you know, I'm definitely looking forward to, you know, all the back and forth that's going to happen between both of those camps. That's going to be, you know, definitely a real scene there in Las Vegas, Nevada, you know, leading into their bout at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. But, you know, that, you know, kind of like covers the whole thing there for this fight card. Like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to it there at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. It will be live on Showtime pay-per-view. So for those that, you know, aren't able to get over there to Las Vegas, you can see it there on Showtime pay-per-view. You know, one thing I'm going to kind of like touch on here before I close out this podcast, you know, one of the bigger stories of the week that happened is in reference to you know, multi-division champion, former champion Adrian Broner, eventually making an agreement to sign with Don King Promotions, and that kind of, you know, brought an element of surprise to, you know, some people that, you know, he would sign with Don King. I think that that was you know, one thing that, you know, people, you know, weren't necessarily expecting there in this particular sense. But, you know, with Adrian Broner having, you know, his recent you know, dealings as far as like fights are concerned, you know, he was scheduled to fight Omar Figueroa last year, and that, you know, kind of like fell through. And then, of course, this year he was supposed to be fighting in Atlanta there, and that fight, you know, fell through as well. So that whole agreement between Adrian Broner and BLK Prime eventually, you know, fell by the wayside. So, you know, he's you know, looking to go in another direction. And you know, now that news is that he is there with Don King Promotions. So you know, I felt like that was a very interesting move there, given that, you know, Don King, you know, to a certain extent, as far as like holding events are concerned, he's only had, you know, 4 events, you know, since 2018. You know, of course, he's been, you know, one of the more notable promoters in the sport of boxing, probably one of the top 2 most well-known promoters in boxing history. But, you know, as of recently, you know, he hasn't really had that many events out there. So, you know, for you know, Adrian Broner to kind of like go that direction is very interesting, to say the least. I'm not sure if that means that he'll be, you know, having a headline fight here pretty soon. I know that Don King has had one event over in Ohio last year, so maybe they could try to do something in Ohio once again. But, you know, in this particular sense, after Adrian Broner, gets this initial fight going through under Don King Promotions, what will that mean in the near future for him at this particular stage of his professional career? So, any thoughts? Boxing Academic, I'll start with you. What do you think about Broner there aligning with Don King?
So I think it's a two-sided coin on it. So Adrian Broner was in a position where people sort of question if they should take a chance on him and or put him in a position to succeed for whatever reason, because he a liability, whatever the reason that they are blackballing him in a sense. So he wants to be able to get fight dates, get, paydays, et cetera, et cetera. But on the flip of that, he also does not want to do what he has always been done, which is always be in competitive fights. I think he wants sort of a break, on the tail end of his career. Now, one thing that I feel like is the case with Don King is that he puts his fighters in competitive fights. And, you can take that back to old days of recent, where I'm basing this opinion off of, is Bermain Stavern. When he was being the promoter of Bermain Stavern, Stavern got, he ain't really get no fights to where he just was the favorite, So I think that Adrian Broner wanting to just get light touches is probably, it ain't gonna be as straightforward as that. Maybe he may get one here or there, but I would hope Don King would put him in fights that that's gonna put money in their pockets, which will be competitive fights.
Yeah. I mean, he Don King, hasn't, just had like someone like a Bermain Stavern, but he's kind of, had some other contenders out there, not, like Trevor Bryan as far as like the heavyweight division is concerned. He's had, Amir Imam, who, did compete for, a world title there, around the 140-pound division and whatnot. So, he's kind of like put, a number of fighters here recently in some pretty good positions, but, something with a profile, there, like a Adrian Broner, how that would mix here having Don King being his main promoter or his main guy. Will that lead to, him kind of getting some other fights later on down the line? Maybe, this could be like an outside shot, maybe a fight against Regis Prograis after he has an initial fight with Don King. Who knows? But that's kind of like a little bit of a stretch, so to speak, given that Prograis is the current WBC champion at 140 pounds. But I'm just, throwing that name out there as a potential fight that Adrian Broner could get if he's able to, stay on point and stay on schedule there within the 140-pound division. Steph, what you got?
Today how I feel about Broner is how I felt about him almost dating back a year ago. JB, you've heard me say this dating back to the Figueroa fight. When that fight was released, I said, oh no, this is bad. Remember when we were choosing against him then? I was like, he deserves something easy, man. For me, also, I always take this into account. I think you could hear it on how I talk and how I explain stuff, Jay. You're too academic. Man, I really care about these guys. So it's funny how when we talk about Adrian Broner today, we don't even talk about his boxing, man, because we all know that his boxing skill is excellent, or was excellent at one point. We all know that he was one of the dogs of his heyday. But now that we are at the end, or getting on that back nine, he's got about another 6 holes to go, and he's still 1 over, trying to get back to even. It's just confusion with him. And now you're with Don King. I got no beef with that. Whatever he's trying to do. I think the messages that he's put out since his last, good appearance against Pacquiao or shortly before have been, like I said, confusing, because dude, you were aligned with the best in the business, talking about Al Heyman and PBC. Now we can argue about that. That's on a different day, but they have done nothing but good for you. Nothing, nothing more, nothing less. Meaning, and that nothing's perfect, but they, at least in the public eye, you were one of the more promoted boxers, and this boxing game is very difficult to navigate. So you were already with the best in the business. So and I want to ask you before this kind of you went on this tangent. Listen, what's his relationship like with PBC, or even Al Heyman? Is it good, Jay? Is it bad, or is it ugly? Like, which is it? Like, that's what I really don't know. So that's why I kind of don't care about all the gossip that keeps coming out about him. How is it? What is it?
I don't know for certain, but I mean, for me to, kind of like have this, like going off of, what, recent, recent dealings that, Adrian Broner had while being under Heyman Boxing, or under the advisement of Heyman Boxing, right? I think that the last
little mess.
What's that?
I said he was a mess and heavily promoted.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, right? Like he had the fight against Santiago in 2021, and that was, like you said, like a bubble fight there. And he went through that particular fight and he got a decision victory on that. But some people felt like his performance was so bad that they felt like Santiago should have gotten a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt in that fight, right? And then after that fight ended, it was more of like, okay, he's like, oh, let me be more active, give me a chance, I'll do good, I'll do this, I'll do that. And it took like an entire calendar year for him to be put in position for another fight, right? And that was supposed to be against Omar Figueroa Jr. That was scheduled for Hollywood, Florida. And then here we are, it comes up leading in a week into the fight. And then what was it? It was like Saturday, and then Sunday rolled around, because like I actually went to that fight card, right? So
yeah, Hollywood, Florida, I remember.
Right, Hollywood, Florida, right? But usually they have just put it out there. They have a certain schedule of how they do things, as far as like what they do in reference to approving media members or credentials and stuff like that, right? But when you're being used to getting approved for these fights, and you see how they do things, and they do things a certain way, and they let you know by a certain date or a certain day.
Mm-hmm.
That particular day came, and I didn't see anything, like nothing in reference to approval, non-approval, anything like that. So I was like, yo, what's going on? Then another day passes, nothing. Then another day passes, nothing. And it goes into Monday. And then Monday morning is when we had the thing in reference to Adrian Broner saying that he's out of the fight. So that's like when everything kind of like, got rushed, scrambled, and everything like that, where they had a replacement opponent there in Sergey Lipinets, and, everything had to be sorted out in order for that, that fight card to go through. But that kind of like goes into something where, I feel like a number of people kind of got the gist in reference to Adrian Broner, in reference to him at that time being, I would say unprofessional in a sense. But
yeah, no, very much. He was out of shape. He wasn't going to make weight. Yes. So that's the truth.
Right.
That's the fact. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I think at this particular point, I don't know if like Adrian Broner kind of like went full, admittance to that, but at least you're seeing like at this point right now, he is working to, change himself and transition himself, being, no drinking, no smoking, none of that, working there with Kevin Cunningham, nonstop. That he's there to trying to change his lifestyle and everything like that. What is he like? What 26 years old still? Like
No, he's
whatever it is,
32. He's my
32.
age. Or, no, I'm 33. Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's a year younger than me.
So
So he's
yeah,
still got a lot. Still
yeah,
got a lot.
He's still got a lot. That's still left. For him, but he had a lot put on him. At a very young age. You know what I'm saying? So it's like right now, him being under Don King and Don King Promotions, they're trying to, just have him be put in a position, I guess, to have a fight in the interim. But like I guess Don King is saying, like, proud. He's saying like he's dropping a gauntlet to the other promoters and challenges them to bring their best fighters to meet up with Adrian Broner. He called out Bob Arum, called out Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, advising Al Heyman, of course, with the promoters that Al Heyman works with, maybe they want to try to work something out. So I mean, you could possibly have him be put in a position to fight a guy, but I don't know if it's going to be where he's going to be like the headliner or like the A side or something like that. It would end up being a headlining bout because of the level that Adrian Broner has been at. You can't like take him from where he was and then like make him a B side unless if it's something where he's like facing like how he faced Manny Pacquiao some years back. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So here with Don King, it's almost like a similar situation when Don King had, as I said, Amir Imam facing Jose Carlos Ramirez there for that WBC 140-pound title some time back. So I'm like saying, okay, what could he be put in position to go ahead and fight? What's a makeable fight for him? We'll see here in the near future. But the thing about it is that I feel like he needs to have like a test run at first here under Don King Promotions. And like I was saying, Don King did have a fight card over in Warren, Ohio. Not that far from where Broner has been at. So
right.
I say have that trial run first and do that. This is an interesting comment in reference to who Broner is around. Of course, he's around training with Kevin Cunningham. I think that's his campus over there in Florida. But Matt Gomez says that he feels like Adrian Broner should go with Buddy McGirt. Now I don't know. Maybe that's more about the style that Buddy McGirt has or the number of fighters that McGirt has had in his camp. There that makes his fighters be more active or something like that. But right now, like I said, Broner's with Kevin Cunningham, so
and I love that. I love that. I'm sorry to cut you real fast, but like I love that. Kevin Cunningham's. I was just talking about trainers we just do the other day. I forgot to mention Kevin Cunningham because I like that style. He's also there with familiar faces that keep him accountable at this point too.
Yeah.
So, even of course, his protege and young Tank, who he brought to Floyd. So, who still comes around and shows his face and shows love because at one point in time, Adrian was his role model.
Yep.
So that there's still a lot of love there, and I just kind of want to quickly finish. Look, like, so yeah, I feel blessed enough to be able to kind of dissect that rhetoric, all that negative stuff, gossip stuff about Adrian, because I'm only concerned with his boxing skill, and then the man himself is okay, but I also have eyes and ears, and again, can discern for myself. He has not looked, as far as in the ring, he hasn't looked as great. So it's only obvious that he needs to, like you were saying, Jay, to build himself back up. And I think at one point in time, he was, like you said, very used to something and fed up that he couldn't get it and was just kind of whining and grinding about that. But as Kevin Bahari would say, and I get this from him, the real profit here is time. Only time will tell with Adrian Broner, because you can't be in there at the welterweight or lower with a gut, man. You just can't. You just can't. I don't care what no one says. So we shall see with him, and I wish him luck.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see. What happens here within the near future in the next few weeks or so, as far as like news with Adrian Broner and that type of stuff there, and we'll see like how this pairing goes with him and Don King, as far as like what's on slate for the rest of 2023 there with Adrian Broner, but. Just had to, get into that there a little bit here to kind of like talk about that.
Yeah, that went under the radar, but that's big news and interesting news. Very, very interesting news. But when I saw that picture of him, I guess I'd be lying if I say I wasn't surprised, just a little bit. But hey, at this point, I mean, like I'm not surprised, man. That they look all right. And if anyone starts saying that he can't fight him, no, they can all work together. So,
they'll be able to work something out in reference to all of that. So, whether they have something for Don King to, put up a card in Ohio or something like that, or over in Miami where he has had a couple of cards over there for Adrian Broner, then we'll see what happens with that. But outside of that, then we'll see if he gets put in position to, kind of like have a fight that's, fairly notable, particularly if he's, still there at 140 pounds. There's still a number of fights that he could be part of that, would really be intriguing for some fighters out there. So that remains to be seen. But on that note, this particular podcast is nearing 2 hours. Thanks for everyone that has watched in live. And of course, this is going to be available on demand through iTunes, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. So, for those that are, listening into this particular podcast, here for the recording, we thank you for that. But in this instance here, bringing a close to this edition of the Boxing Source Radio Show, big thanks to the Boxing Academic and for Brother Steph for coming in to talk about the upcoming fight card that is on Saturday, headlined by David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant for the WBC interim super middleweight championship. And like I say at the end of every show, folks, the point of boxing is to hit and not get hit, not to stand and trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.
All right, brother, man. Be cool.